Welcome to a new season of Leadership Live podcast, where talented people become extraordinary leaders. I'm Daphne Horowitz, and I'm here to help you cut through the noise and talk about real leadership issues. Down to earth, solid, caring and confident leadership. No theory, no pie in the sky, no frills or fluff. Because this is what the world needs most right now. For you to lead with confidence, clarity and impact, so that you can build a business that builds people, grows profit, and makes a difference. What is it like to be in the 6%? Today, I'm excited to coach Nancy Yen Shipley, who's an orthopedic surgeon and in the 6% of women in the United States who hold this job. She knows what it means to work in a male-dominated field with all its challenges and opportunities. In this episode, Nancy gets coached by me on her big vision to create her path of distinction. She has a fabulous story, starting off working at minimum wage to becoming an orthopedic surgeon, a path she never imagined taking. Her dream is to reach further and bigger and continue to have an even greater impact. We covered some fabulous topics which helped Nancy to see herself in the full glory of her dream and to create a mindset shift about allowing herself to see the big picture and to take small steps on the way there. We spoke about learning to say no and listening to your body, because your body always knows what's right for you. My favorite part was in the conversation when Nancy had an insight about how to hold boundaries in service of the bigger you. And this is definitely something I can keep reminding myself as well. My session with Nancy is inspiring, fun, and allowed for a big dream to crystallize for the powerhouse of a woman that Nancy is. Have a listen and enjoy. Welcome to our show, Nancy. I'm really excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Yes, and quite a courageous move for you, because I understand this is your first coaching session ever. So well done for that.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So what would you like to focus on for today?
I think I would just like to gain some clarity and some confidence in the projects that I'm working on.
Okay. So when you say clarity and confidence, what does that mean for you exactly?
Sometimes I have my hands in a number of projects all at once. And so it's always a little bit of an effort for me to hone in and focus in on less than a handful. It's often, I don't think focusing on just one thing would work for me, because I like having a couple of things going on. I think it keeps things fresh for me. But I tend to say yes to too many things, and I tend to dive into too many things. And so I think having some clarity together with the confidence in the projects that I'm working on, and confidence in myself that I am doing the right thing for me and my overall career and aspirations would be really helpful.
Tell me something about the achievements that you're so proud of, how you are making a difference to the world, and also for our listeners, I just want them to get a sense of who you are. So
Sure.
Tell us a story. Tell us a story. Don't give us the CV. Give me a story.
Sure.
At a peak moment.
Well, I'm a classic late bloomer. I went into college, university, thinking I was going to be a pre-med major, and it was not for the right reasons. I think it was because of what my parents expected of me, and I did not thrive in that major, and got kind of weeded out pretty quickly. Ended up finding that I really enjoyed both my sociology classes and my psychology classes. I gave up at that time the idea of going into medicine, and just took classes that interested me. And I also found myself in college, as hopefully everybody does, and you kind of figure out who you are as a young adult. But I didn't have the best GPA. It was 2.99999, so I rounded up to 3.0. And so a little bit of a late bloomer in that,
so what does 3.0 mean? Just for those of us who are not from the States. What
yes.
does that mean?
So I mean, a 4.0 is like a straight A average, perfect marks, right? And so a B average would be a 3.0. And so that's like getting, 80% on a test. So I guess we could say that I got through college at 79.9999% marks, which is definitely not good enough for medical school. But it took me several years of I worked a minimum wage job, but I had a lot of fun. I worked in the snowboarding industry. I helped lead some conferences and helped run a small business. And several years later, in a roundabout way, I ended up saying, I actually think I do want to go into medicine, and this time for the right reasons. So by the time I started medical school, I was almost 30. And I then had the amazing experience of shadowing an orthopedic surgeon. I didn't even know what orthopedic surgery was. And I ended up applying and getting into an orthopedic surgery residency. And that's what I do now. I practice orthopedic surgery.
And tell us how many women orthopedic surgeons there are in the States?
Yeah, I'm an anomaly. There are only 6% women practicing
6%.
within orthopedic surgery. So, just a very, very male dominated field. And then you add in individuals of color. And so that number ends up being even smaller than 6%. Yeah. And so being a little bit of a rare bird in my field, I realized that I have common experiences as a woman as other women in male dominated fields. And that led to just this past year, me developing and producing and hosting my own podcast, the 6% with Nancy MD. The name is somewhat self-explanatory, in which I talk to women in various fields, including you, for that matter.
I was a guest.
Who are thriving in fields that are traditionally, overrun by men. We love our male colleagues, but it's definitely an imbalance there when the numbers are in the single digits and low double digits. And so it's just been an interesting ride, and a lot of times within medicine, there is this prevailing thought that one should be just a doctor. And it's always funny saying just, because we do go through a lot of schooling and training, and there's a lot of sacrifice to get to where you are. But to me, a couple of years ago, I hit this slump, not so much because of what I was doing clinically. I felt like I was still helping my patients. I still enjoyed the surgery that I did. But I felt like I wasn't growing creatively. I wasn't using that creative muscle. And I felt like I personally was getting stale. And that's when I really started to get on social media and creating this virtual network. It just expanded my world greatly. And that ultimately led to more brainstorming about talking to these women in male dominated fields, and led to this podcast, and is now leading to more things. So it's just been a very interesting journey.
Yeah. And I just remember when we first spoke and you told me your story, I was just blown away from so many different elements, because it's really, as you say, you are a rare bird. But I think something that's wonderful about your story is how you seem to have just flowed with what was going on and deciding what to do next when it felt right for you. And often when you speak to people in, highly specialized professions like doctors, you know that they wanted to be a doctor from a very young age, and they just had this kind of single focus, and I'm going to do everything that I need to do, and try again and again if my marks are not good enough. And you somehow landed on this path of absolute distinction through being very aware and conscious of what's right for you at any moment in time.
I guess that's a good way to put it. And I have many colleagues who have taken that path in which they have known forever that they were going to be physicians, and they are some of my most amazing colleagues. But I think that we see all sorts of different paths to get from point A to point B. And, mine obviously zigzagged a lot more than theirs, but I picked up a lot of really interesting and great experiences along the way.
For sure. And I think all of that makes up who you are, because you are an orthopedic surgeon. So really choosing a specialty or a specialization that is unique for women particularly. And together with that, you have creativity that you're looking to kind of give expression to through your podcast and writing a book. And I see a huge connection that everything you do has to mean something for you. So like your exploration of that question, the why question, is very much sitting there. And for me, talking about why is one of my favorite topics, and connecting that to vision is also one of my favorite topics, because the way I see it is your why is your reason for being. It's really the reason that you get out of bed in the morning, what drives you, what motivates you, what is that thing that gives you that push or meaning to just do your thing. And then your vision is the thing that is that big dream that you have of where do you want to go. It gives you some direction to your life, and it lets you figure out that, even if you don't know the details, and you can never know the details and things always change, it allows you to create some kind of a picture that's inspiring to really, really set you on that path. If you had to think of yourself, think that we would be having another conversation in 5 years' time. And we meet up, we're like going into a time capsule. We meet up 5 years from today, and you say to me, Daphna, you cannot believe my life is incredible. I am happy on every level. I'm feeling fulfilled, and I'm feeling all those things that we spoke about 5 years ago when we did the podcast. They all came true. I'd love you to put yourself there, speak in present tense as if it's happening right now in this moment. You've walked into a time machine. Describe to me what you see in your life, what you're finding fulfilling, what's around you, what do you notice?
This is hard.
It is hard. It is hard, for sure.
This is hard.
Thinking in a different way than you used to. That's what it
is. And, and I think before I jump into that, I think it's a natural for me, and probably for a lot of people, for their minds to start telling them, oh, no, you shouldn't say that, because that's just reaching too far.
Yes.
Or, you don't deserve this, or you're not good enough for that. Right. So it's all that imposter syndrome speaking. And so you kind of have to put that aside and just kind of put it all out there. Right.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly what I want. Put it all out there.
Yeah.
Dare to dream, so to speak.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I would say that I am still making an impact on my patients' lives as a surgeon. And, my one of my true loves within my subspecialty of orthopedics is shoulder surgery. And so I would love to be known for just taking really good care of people and their shoulders. I think that sounds a little odd, but yes, I love the shoulders.
I love the shoulders. Awesome. Shoulders are a good thing,
They're a good
actually
thing.
A bit metaphoric over there if we want to take that for a moment, because the shoulders are the things that we use to carry our burdens, our loads,
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that I'd still love to podcast because
so I'm stopping you 1 second there, because I want you to speak in present tense so I can see that you're going into the future.
Yes.
So put yourself there, take a deep breath. You're 5 years from today, 2025. It's the end of the year.
All right. So then I will say, I am a seasoned podcaster. I have been doing this for 5 years, and it's still fresh.
Yeah.
And I still find myself in awe of the women that I talk to, because there's still a lot of fields in which they are male dominated, and there are still a lot of fields in which women find themselves in the single digit percentages. And so there are a lot of compelling stories out there and a lot of good lessons from these women. And I still find them extremely inspiring. And to this day, I still feel like I learn something from every single podcast that I do. But what's grown from the podcast is now I am a keynote speaker on a regular basis. In fact, I just did my 3rd TED Talk.
Love it. You're getting into this, you see, Nancy.
Exactly, right? Yeah, sky's the limit. And I have already published my first book, and I'm working on my 2nd, maybe my 3rd. And because the success of the podcast and the popularity of just the format of the stories and the way that we're sharing the inspiring stories, as well as just really helpful tips for excelling at your life and your career, it's become so popular and well received that I now also host a show that interviews women. Let's see, should we say on Netflix?
Nice. Netflix. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Netflix
the next Brene Brown. And Nancy Yen special. Awesome.
Nancy MD special on Netflix.
Oh, I see it. I can see it.
Right. And I continue to hone my interviewing skills and helping draw out these stories from these amazing women.
Wow. That is some vision. Tell me.
I know, right?
No, it's awesome. It's so exciting and energizing. Tell me how the doctor or the orthopedic surgeon is fitting in, because when you spoke about it earlier, it was in future tense, and now you've created this clear picture. So tell me about that.
And and I think it. As an aside, I think that's part of my challenge, because I love my craft so much, and I love being an orthopedic surgeon so much. But a lot of times it's hard to do more than the one thing,
Okay,
and I
but
mentioned
now you're
earlier,
going back to today. So now take yourself to 5 years' time where you are this persona, a show on Netflix, you working on your 2nd and even 3rd book. 1st book published, your podcast is continuing and inspiring people. You have been a TED Talk speaker 3 times over. So tell me about how orthopedic surgeon fits into that story. You are there. So put yourself right back there into this energizing picture.
I still practice orthopedic surgery. I still see patients, and I still take care of individuals one-on-one, which was, years ago, the jumping off point to all of these other interesting projects that I got into. And so it's not something that I want to leave behind.
So you're carrying that with you.
So I'm carrying it with me. It's still a part of me. And I think, stepping outside of this for a moment, I think that what's hard is saying, okay, I'm still doing all of these things, but I'm also doing all these other cool things. And I think the part of my brain that wants to make sure every little thing has its space and its little compartment, it's hard to visualize that.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Put yourself back. We are still 5 years from today. Okay. We're still in the time capsule.
I'm still there. I'm still there. I keep leaving, and I'm sorry.
No, it's natural. It's natural. I want you to think orthopedic surgeon, real persona, because this is what
Mm-hmm.
I've, imagined in my mind as you were speaking, this real persona with energy, with a message, with a platform.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was all easy, joyful, and fun?
That would be amazing.
Tell me about that. Put yourself there. It is. This is the future you've created 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me,
Mm-hmm.
how does it look when it's easy, joyful, and fun, and you get to have the persona as the orthopedic surgeon who still sees patients, loves her craft, and does amazing, inspiring things as well?
Well, I think in pursuing the things that I'm passionate about, and pursuing the things
Are you in
that
5 years' time? Or
I'm
because
in
it feels
5
to me
years
like you're
time.
overthinking it right now. You're
I
thinking from
probably
today.
am.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is an imagination exercise, right? You get to have
Yes.
everything.
I think I'm being analytical about it. And oh, this is so hard.
Yeah.
This is so hard. And so you want me to speak on how everything is married together and is easy.
Yes. And it's happening. It's already happening. You are there. So
Yes.
just tell me what's going on around you.
Okay. So I get up in the morning and I go to my office and I see patients. And because I only practice within a very subspecialty of my field, it's
Because you
very
love shoulders.
focused because I love shoulders. And so I just see shoulders all day long. And I perform elective surgeries. Because I'm not taking call in the hospital, there's a lot less unpredictability. And so that allows me to also dedicate a good amount of my time on my books, my podcast, my show. And I am constantly in meetings. That sounds like it's negative, but it's actually really energizing to me. And remember way back when we had this pandemic and we couldn't meet people in person. Well, guess what? I'm meeting people in person again, and it's amazing. And I'm flying all over the place because I'm giving these talks, and as an in-demand keynote speaker, I actually need to be very selective about when I go, where I go, because I have my family and that's the priority. And so I am fortunate enough where I get to choose when and where I go.
Awesome.
And I simultaneously
What is your message? What are people asking you
yes.
to speak about?
My message is how to live and embody being a Renaissance woman, and how in the process of doing so, we live our best lives.
Wow. Wow. How to live and embody being a Renaissance woman. Now, just think about that, because what comes up for me there is that it's not separated from being an orthopedic surgeon.
No, that it includes that.
Yes. You almost, that's the definition, right, of being the Renaissance woman, is that you're the orthopedic surgeon who has learned so much, has experienced so much, and can inspire people, women, to excel even against the odds or against hard odds. Let's go back, because there's just like the embodiment of the Renaissance woman. It, to me, just speaks of the whole picture. It's not like something you need to give up something in order to do something else and have everything in its tidy little block. It's almost
Right.
like just a whole amalgamation, integration of everything, rather than here's the doctor piece, here's the podcast piece, here's the book piece, here's the family piece. It's all part of it.
Right.
How does
And
that, yeah.
And I think that we're living and embodying the Renaissance woman persona is about embracing all these different facets of oneself and being dynamic and not being pigeonholed into, one being one thing.
Yeah. And I would even challenge maybe that concept of one thing, because to me, it's the integration that's the one thing. It's the integration.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Renaissance woman. What does it mean and what does it look like? That's the one thing. And that one thing is made up of the different facets. That's what brings in the
Yes.
color. That's what brings in the energy. That's what brings in the, push and pull, or, whatever it is. And sometimes in different directions, but it's holding all of that makes
Mm-hmm.
the Renaissance woman, the embodiment
Mm-hmm.
of the Renaissance woman. How does
And
that
maybe
sit
when
with you?
I'm speaking to individuals about that, I'm telling them that, that one thing can look different for everybody, and
Yeah.
that it's unique, and that we all have our own different ways of embracing how we embody the Renaissance woman.
Exactly. And that's the next layer. So the
Mm-hmm.
first layer is the what. What does the Renaissance woman look like? The
Mm-hmm.
next layer is how do we do this?
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
first getting a really clear picture of what is a Renaissance woman? What does that mean for me in my life? And what does it mean for you in your life? And how does it look?
Because it's important for me to be able to describe how I live that life, but also be able to provide an actionable formula or guideline for the people that I speak to be able to do that themselves.
Yes. And there you're
Right.
taking your skill of having the structure and the organization and the
Mm-hmm.
planning to make sense of, okay, so what do I do today? So this is, I
Mm-hmm.
love this because this ties into, I sometimes speak about mindset shifts. And one of the mindsets I talk about
Mm-hmm.
is think big, start small. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to imagine that big picture, that beautiful vision that you've just created. And I could so vividly see it. I could feel you could see it. And then you've got
Mm-hmm.
to translate it into small steps. Like what is the next step I have to do now that will bring
Mm-hmm.
me closer to that vision? How that feels for you, kind of, because what we do when we look at a 5-year vision is we kind of push past all the stuff or the noise that's going on right now that seems so hard and insurmountable. And we kind
Mm-hmm.
of go over to the other side and say, what does that look like? And
Mm-hmm.
when we can build that picture, we can go back to our current time. So we can get back
Mm-hmm.
into that time capsule, go back to today and say, okay, let's look at what I'm busy with. Is that bringing me closer to my vision or taking me further away? Is this particular activity bringing me closer to my vision or taking me further away? And that's, in my mind, the small step that needs to happen.
I think that's great because I think in some ways I have started to do that in just trying to analyze why sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed. And I do this from time to time. I write down all the different roles and obligations and responsibilities that I may have and how well they fit into my values. And I like your suggestion of also holding it up against the 5-year me and asking, is this taking me closer to that ideal life, which includes not just professional but personal, right? And so I think that I had started to do that, maybe a little bit just unconsciously, in arriving at a decision to back off on one obligation that I had signed up for.
Well done. Woohoo.
And yeah, and feeling a lot of guilt. Like I think I feel a lot of guilt saying, this isn't right for me right now, and I'm going to decline. But I've started to work on that a lot more. And so I did that recently with something that was taking up a little bit too much of my time and didn't fit into that vision of where I would be in 5 years, 10 years. And I have also been working on even on a much more micro scale. And this is going to make me seem like I'm not appreciative of the holidays, but somebody had asked if I wanted to be a part of a Secret Sister gift exchange. And I thought, okay, someone's going to draw a name out of a hat, and I will send that person a gift, and then somebody will send me a gift. But it turned out to involve, and there's nothing wrong with this, it just wasn't right for me at the moment, involve, sending almost like a chain letter out to 20 women, and then replacing one person's name at the bottom with yours and shifting. And I started getting this chest pain thinking about it, and like everything else that was going on right now, and all the different things that I wanted to get done this week and next, and that had time sensitive deadlines with it. And as much in like, really, gift giving should be a joy. And this was feeling like, oh my gosh, this has turned into a chore. And so I declined, and I said, I feel like I'm a horrible person, but I'm going to respectfully decline, and I'm not going to participate. But then as soon as I did it, it felt good.
Exactly. So, what I love about what you're saying here, Nancy, is you have this ability. We all do. We actually all have this ability, but some of us are just less aware of it. And it seems to me like you're very aware of it, the ability of your body to talk to you, because sometimes our rational mind plays tricks with us. It's that guilt, conscience, and you should be, and gifting is nice. Why don't you want to give, whatever, all those rational arguments to make you feel really bad about it. Our mind can go in absolute circles with our rational thinking. But if we can be in tune with our body and say, whoa, I just felt a chest pain, that means it's not right. Check in with your body, because your body knows first, actually, before your mind takes over and tries to convince you one way or the other. And you can feel the difference when you feel joyful about a decision, or where you feel you've taken a decision and it's just adding to the pressure. And that's a really good way to assess some of the things that we say yes and no to, and to really be able to uphold our boundaries in service of the you that you are busy creating for 5 years into the future. And that's what it's about. It's about you creating this person who's got a huge message to bring to the world, a huge level of inspiration to share. And, doing a gifting thing may just be the thing that's going to distract you and move you off that path, and you have to then work your way back to it. And there's, I'm sure, many other examples of that. But it's reframing that to say, I am now working in service of the me that I want to be in 5 years' time. It's not just the things that I want to do. It's also, who do I want to be in that point in time?
I love it.
Oh, awesome. So can I make a couple of suggestions, or maybe I should ask you, what are you going to do with it? That's that better coaching question, actually, is what are you going to do? What insight have you had from this conversation? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll get into some action.
I think the biggest insight is adding that picture of ideal me into the framework when I'm making the short-term decisions. And when I'm saying no, like you were saying no to a particular project or a particular obligation because it doesn't fit into that picture. And that I like that goes a step beyond just saying, okay, do these fit my values? They may fit my values, but what if they don't fit into where I want to be? And so it just adds an extra layer, and I really like that.
That's awesome. So what are you going to do as a result of this conversation? What action can you take to really, either hardwire this thinking, or get into some sort of a habit of reminding yourself? What kind of action can you take?
I think that, and I know you probably want me to step into some more minute detail of the steps.
Whatever's going to work for you.
But kind of like maybe working towards that. I think it has been becoming, but it is becoming more so clear that in addition to what I do on the day-to-day as a surgeon, that for my creative projects, that I really do need to just put a lot of my heart and soul into this podcast, as well as the writing of the book, which I've started. And I think that really staying focused on that will be some of the biggest influences in getting me to that 5-year me.
And as you say that, how does your level of anxiety or tension or overwhelmment, how does that feel as you say that?
I think it makes me feel less overwhelmed, because it tells me that right now, as far as kind of self-development, career development, there needs to be kind of 3 big slices of pie. And of course, there's always family in there, but I'm talking outside of the personal relationships. The pie should be mostly 3 big slices. And that is my clinical work, and that is my podcast, and that is the writing that I'm doing. And everything else ends up being a little bit more noise.
Okay. So it's separating out what you really want to focus on and what feels more like noise. So Nancy, I'm going to throw in a suggestion just because I can't resist. But for me, what I noticed was really powerful in this conversation was your ability to step in to that 5-year vision of yourself. And it wasn't just what you were doing. There was a real energy to who you were being in that space, the ideal you, as you called it. And I wonder, because you talk about that you like to write things down, or you like to have things organized. And I'm wondering if it might be useful for you to sit down and write down this image. And, sometimes you can do it actually writing down the words or the story of this Nancy 5 years from today. As I said, in present tense, sometimes you can use visuals. It's about going, you can Google images, a whole lot of pictures that portray the feelings and the stuff that's happening around you. So either way is good, whatever works better for you. But somehow to have something tangible that you can say, this is me in 5 years' time.
Yep.
That you can connect to and look at and engage with, so you can stir up those feelings again of, this is what I'm working towards. This is what everything I'm doing is in aid of.
Yep. That's perfect.
Okay. Good. Well, this has been really, really fun for me.
Same for me too.
It feels like,
it definitely pushes me to verbalize the things that are sometimes hard to say, because I feel like sometimes when you say it, you put it out there in the universe. And of course, you want to put it out there in the universe so that it can be manifested and that it can happen. But there's this fear. It's like, oh my gosh, what if I am successful? Now what? And so I think as much as we have fear of failure, there's a lot of times a fear of actually being successful.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly. And that's our mind talk that does just hold us back in whichever direction it decides to go.
Right.
And I really do believe, and I do use this often, is that having that vision that allows you to go past all of that can really help you to keep focused on where you want to be and what you're wanting to create for you and your life. And when you described it, I just really got such a vivid sense of the energy and the feeling and the inspiration that sits in that place. And just connecting to that feeling again, I think almost creates it all over again, creates the picture for you all over again. So I don't want you to lose that picture.
No, I think I'll just have to call you, Daphne, on maybe a bi-weekly basis and just re-describe it to you so I can stay in that space.
Fabulous. Exactly. Send me a voice note on Messenger or whatever it is.
I'll say, Daphne, I'm still here. I'm still here in my 5-year place.
Awesome. And I certainly look forward to more conversations. We don't have to wait 5 years into the future to engage again.
Right.
Good. It's been really fun. Thank you, Nancy.
You.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much.
This wraps up another episode of Leadership Live. Thank you for joining us today. And now let's continue the conversation. Do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Connect with me on LinkedIn or head on to my website at daphnehorovitz.com, where you can download a free sample of my new book, Weekly Habits for Extraordinary Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend so that I can continue to reach and support leaders just like you. So tune in next week to Leadership Live, where talented people become extraordinary leaders.